chemistry lab is a fascinating facility. This is where discoveries are made, Nobel Prizes are won, and diseases are cured. But it is also a place of potential danger. But as long as you remember to follow the guidelines set within this video of preparation, procedure, and emergency response, you will be able to act appropriately to avoid any potentially dangerous situations. Ben is getting ready for tomorrow's Chem Lab by reading his lab manual and completing his pre-lab assignment. Uh-oh, looks like someone's getting tired. That's okay, a good night's sleep is always a good idea before class. It's okay, Ben. This is the essential element, and he is here to help you get ready for lab. First, you need to get rid of all your loose clothing or jewelry that might catch on things. Hold on, you're not ready yet. Let's get some pants on you and some closed-toed shoes. Now for the final touch. Just kidding, Ben. Long hair may get in the way if not tied back properly. And that shirt doesn't cover your midriff. Ben, it was just a joke. What's that? You want to get to class? Very well. Eating and drinking in lab is strictly prohibited. However, if you must have something, with the instructor's consent, you may leave the lab area to satisfy your thirst or hunger. One of the first things you will do upon entering the lab is put on your safety goggles. Even if you're not working with chemicals, others might, so it's important to put on eye protection as soon as possible. To work effectively, the goggles should form a complete seal around the face and use indirect ventilation. If you are uncertain your goggles meet the safety requirements, you should ask your instructor. Due to further eye safety concerns, if you wear contact lenses, notify your instructor the first day of lab. Now before you begin working in lab, it's important to become familiar with your surroundings. First, locate all the lab exits. In the event of an emergency, you don't want to waste time trying to find the way out. Next, find your fire extinguisher, eye wash, safety shower, and gas shutoff button. Let's review proper preparation before you start your lab exercise. Prepare for lab by looking over your lab manual. Wear clothes that won't easily catch on things and properly cover your body. Bring closed-toed shoes and safety goggles to protect your feet and eyes from spills and splashes. Inform your instructor if you wear contact lenses. And finally, upon entering the lab, locate all exits and safety devices. Working in the lab requires an organized work area. Reading your lab procedure before class will give you a better idea of the lab equipment you will need. This is essential to working safely and efficiently, especially if you share the workspace. It is a good idea to wear gloves when you begin working with chemicals. The color code on the bottle indicates a particular hazard. White for corrosive, orange for minimal hazard, red for flammability, yellow for reactivity, and blue for health hazard. Grasp the container with the label in your palm and pour in the opposite direction. This prevents drips from contaminating the label. Try not to take more than you need and never return the excess chemicals to the original containers. When working with more than one chemical, it is important to use separate eyedroppers. Here in Chem Lab, we'll be using many heat sources, each with their own unique burn hazard. so it's important to keep all lab materials a safe distance from open flames and hot surfaces. If you must move or handle a heated container, use the provided heat-resistant equipment. Never judge whether or not a container is hot by appearance alone. Glassware and ceramics may look cool on the outside, but that doesn't mean that they're safe to touch. When experiments need increased ventilation, you may be instructed to work in a fume hood. Confined workspace is an added obstacle, so be sure to keep your workstation clear and organized. When using fume hoods, try to keep the protective sash down as far as possible to keep proper ventilation and added safety. If you find after your experiment that you have leftover chemicals, dispose of them in one of the clearly labeled waste containers, never in the sink or garbage. If you aren't sure which waste container to pour your extra chemicals into, ask your instructor. After disposing your chemicals, clean your work area and anywhere else you might have left a mess. Thoroughly wash all glassware and containers with at least 3 rinses before storing them away. A good rule of thumb is to leave your workspace, balance room, and the lab in general as clean as you found it. Even if you have been wearing gloves, chemical residues can still be present, so be sure to wash your hands with soap and water before leaving the lab area. Now before we move on to the final section of lab safety, let's go over what you just learned. The first step of lab procedure is to check your lab manual and set out only those utensils you will need. Before handling chemicals, check the hazard label for special precautionary measures. And remember, never conduct any experiment not authorized by the lab instructor. When dealing with open flames or burners, remember to keep the area as clear as possible and never judge the surface temperature of a container by appearance alone. When using fume hoods, try to keep the protective sash down as far as possible to keep proper ventilation and added safety. If you ever have leftover chemicals from your experiment or accidentally take too much of a reagent, put these excess chemicals in the proper waste container. Clean wherever you've made a mess and wash your hands before leaving lab. Now, just because you follow all of the right preparations and procedure guidelines, it does not mean everyone around you will, and accidents do happen. So it is important to understand the third and final step of lab safety, emergency response. In the event of a fire, it is important to act immediately. Yell "Fire!"
Fire!
to inform those who may be working with flammable materials. Next, push the gas shutoff button and leave the room in a safe but immediate manner. An even greater chance of harm can result to an individual if chemicals get into the eye. It doesn't take much for a chemical to cause permanent damage if not attended to immediately. The eye in many ways acts as a sponge, and the longer the chemical is in contact with its surface, the more chemical it will absorb. The best way to react in this situation is to have someone help the individual by leading them to an eye wash fountain and physically holding open the eye. Make sure the stream of water is directly hitting the eye and keep rinsing for at least 15 minutes. In the event of a spill that covers a large portion of the body, it's necessary to use the safety shower to help rinse away chemicals from the body. Luckily, the essential element is here to respond in a safe and appropriate manner. In a case such as this, there is no time for modesty. It is important to remove all clothing that may still have chemicals on them. One of the more common safety hazards in lab is a broken utensil or a minor spill. Sharp glass or toxic materials are often involved in these accidents and must be taken seriously. In the event of a broken utensil or spill, notify your instructor who is familiar with the proper cleanup procedure. These make up some of the basic types of emergencies that you may encounter within the lab setting. Let's quickly run through them one more time. In the event of a fire, immediately inform everyone in the lab, push the gas shutoff button, and leave the room in a safe but immediate manner. For chemicals in the eye, use the eye wash fountain to directly flush all the chemicals out for at least 15 minutes. In the event of a spill that covers a large portion of the body, it's necessary to use the safety shower to help rinse away chemicals from the body. Should you ever break a utensil or cause a small spill, inform your lab instructor who is trained in the proper cleanup procedure. Now, Ben, don't you feel good to know that you understand the important portions of lab safety, including preparation, procedure, and emergency response? What's the matter? Have we missed something? You want to know what the essential element is?
It's safety, my young friend. Safety.
Oh, yeah.